So then we have the last thing under our agenda for tonight is once around and discussion ring meeting minutes. Brian, do you want to push that discussion up to the next meeting, or you want to have it now?
I'd rather have it now. And one other tying up loose ends issue. So, Marcia, you're going to talk to the engineer about an environmental study and get back to us? Is that where we're leaving?
Or I could task Robin with getting that information. I think we should use our own engineer to get some basic data.
Okay, so my question simply is, we're going to address this again sometime down the road?
Environmental study. We will.
Okay. The meeting minutes, I can boil it down very simply. As we know, there have been issues ongoing, and I know it's a challenge to Robin to prepare the meeting minutes, trying to use her notes, trying to listen to the recordings, and then if she can't do it, kicking it off to Kathy. It's a very time-consuming effort. My concern is that the nature of the minutes, if we are relying on those to be the official record, we're creating a problem. I would simply suggest that we designate as the official record of the meetings the actual recordings. If there's a problem with the recording, we'll address it. But under the OPRA, we're simply required to record minutes. The minutes that those can range from simply what did we vote on and just a description of it to more detailed, and then the question is, how detailed do you get? And the more detailed, the more issues, the more time, and so forth. So I'm simply suggesting that we continue to do the minutes, but that the official record of our meetings be the audio recording. And to illustrate why that would be advantageous, if the minutes reflect what was voted on, but misstate in any way the question that was voted on, then the minutes become the controlling record of what that vote was. So if the question as framed was different, and we all vote on the question as framed, but the minutes reframe the question, and then we vote to approve the minutes as the official record, we've effectively re-voted everything that's in those minutes, and our votes may not be the same. I don't think we should be in the position of having to go back and confirm that everything is absolutely perfect in the minutes. That's not a productive use of our time either. So I'm simply saying a simple solution that as a matter of record, we say the audio recordings are the official record of our meetings.
And Robin, what is involved in keeping audio recordings indefinitely?
Well, here's the issue. So your minutes are your permanent township record. They're the ones that are to be kept for all time, and that is your record of the meeting. Your recording is impermanent by any standards, and a lot of these are addressed by, they determine a retention schedule and a formal. May think of an electronic record as having some kind of permanency, but honestly, you know, we've been through the reel-to-reel tapes, we've been through the mini cassette tapes, we've been through the CDs, and I skipped one, the floppy disks. We've been through CDs, and now we have our digital recordings, but it's in a format that we have right now. And at some point, that format will be obsolete, and you are going to lose your permanency here. And I speak of this from a historical perspective, and I understand what Brian is saying, and I agree. The conversations we've been having can be convoluted, and you are right, Brian, and I appreciate your noting that it is difficult to create an accurate record of what's being discussed following the train of the discussion. Ultimately, what is or is not included in the minutes has a lot of variances. If you look back to your minutes from prior to my coming here, you will find almost nothing in there regarding council discussions. Why things were decided, how they were decided, none of that is recorded in the minutes. Because honestly, the purpose of the minutes is to record the actions of the council, the decisions you make, the votes you take. So, you know, on a very simplistic perspective, we could eliminate all of this conversation and just That's your official record of the township. It is the record of the actions you take. So I would suggest, rather than making the minutes the official recording, because again, you have some intransients here, you don't have your permanency there, discussing what you want in your minutes. I would say with some of the difficulties we've had with recording the vote, I think more recently we've taken the step, Brian, and maybe you can concur with that, of very carefully going over what you were voting on and the wording of that vote. And I think that has eliminated some of the issues we've had in the past with some of the wording not being clear in the minutes.
Well, I would say to that, Robin, yes and no. It's kind of like when we get around to it, we do it. When we don't, we don't.
Yeah.
The example that came up recently where I took issue with how the minutes framed the question that was voted on. As it turned out, my concerns did not really come to fruition because it didn't matter. But it illustrated the idea that, especially with the votes, maybe we just need a procedure where you read back as part of the official record what the question is that's being voted on.
Yeah.
And then reporting the yes or no's is easy, but then you have a much more defined record. And I think we need to adopt that no matter what we do.
Right. I agree with that. Absolutely.
Because we get into discussions and things are amended and we go back and forth, and then all of a sudden it's okay, let's take a vote.
Right.
We lose track of what it is we're voting on. So I think the procedure should be when the vote is called, that you read back a statement of what the question is that's being voted on. John, can you turn off your mic? And so what happens is that, but then more so also these issues that are coming up, for example, with Mr. Curley this evening, with wanting to know why his comments are not really on the record. And that's where you're right. Either we draw the line at minutes that vote, which if you look at our minutes compared to the borough minutes, our minutes are infinitely more detailed. But then where does that detail stop short of you just transcribing the recording?
Right, which is a different type of activity.
Yeah. I mean, the other alternative is bring in a court reporter and just have him do everything, and then you have a written record. I don't know if that's an option or not. I know that works exceptionally well with the Board of Adjustment, but we had other requirements for making sure there was an available record out of the Board of Adjustment for other reasons of appeal and so forth. But what I'm saying is this situation with the minutes, the way we're trying to do it, I think continually going to be a thorn in our side. And maybe if I don't know that I agree on the idea that storage of audio minutes under the current circumstances will be outdated down the road, but I see your point too. I probably would have said the same thing about compact discs. But I think we need to find a way to address this, because sooner or later I think we're going to run into a serious problem where there's going to be an issue about what was done, said, or voted on, and the minutes are not necessarily going to reflect it, and we're not going to catch it until much later down the road. Maybe the solution is we keep the audio recordings for some set amount of time, a year or two, after which they can be disposed of, but over that period of time, if there's any dispute, we have them to go back to on an official basis. Maybe that's the solution.
I would say the other piece of this, of course, is that there's a responsibility for the council to review the minutes that are provided, and if more time is needed for the council to review to make sure that the minutes are reflective of what you recall occurring at the meeting, we can hold off on approving them and give you more time to review. That's another option as well, because it is, that's the council that's the purpose of the council approval of the minutes. That's your vote is saying, yes, this is what occurred at the meeting, and yes, I approve these minutes.
But that's the problem. See, then the more detailed you get into the minutes, now you have the flip problem. You have to prepare more detailed minutes, and then we have to spend the time to say, is that detail accurate? And for example, with a question that came up on that vote, it was something that in context, reading those minutes later for approval, it didn't pop out, but it did later in the different context of some other questions that arose. So I know John has advised that we can make a motion to amend or correct the minutes later on. But I think we've got to get some kind of an agreement on what we're doing, how long we're going to keep the audio recordings maybe is the solution. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there for discussion, but I'm just pointing out the current system is going to cause us a problem sooner or later.
How long do we keep the recordings for right now?
Right now, we've been posting them on the website, so we've been, I think it's for couple of years now, we've just left them on the website. The state requires them to be kept 80 days after the approval of the minutes. Don't ask me how they arrived at that amount of time, but it's 80 days.
So, I mean, if we're posting on the website, I'm assuming that's going to be there until we...
It's there as long as that file format is a valid format and we have the equipment to listen to the minutes. I mean, I don't think there's any intention to remove them from the website.
Would be at least a year's time forward from any...
Yeah, absolutely.
Brian, is that acceptable?
Yeah, I guess a year is acceptable. You might go 2 years just to make sure you're inside whenever the problem might arise. The problem would probably come within a year, but it might be a year and a day. And, so
I don't think we won't take them off the website. It's a matter of if it's an MP3 or whatever the file format is, and it's no longer accessible by whatever device is being used in that day and time. That's the story.
I don't know. I think with the billions that have been invested in music these days, I think the MP3 and MP4 is going to be around for a long time. But
I still have vinyl.
Huh?
I still have vinyl.
Oh, there you go. But even the CDs, they're MP3.
Yeah.
So I would simply propose then, if there's more discussion needed, I would say let's make it just a policy. We'll keep them 2 years, and that the recordings can then be used if a motion is necessary to amend or correct the minutes.
And just some mention if there's some hiccup like we had back in February, whatever the meeting was, and there is no audio available, there is no detriment.
Yeah, I mean, if I had my druthers, I'd rather have a court reporter there and just take everything down, and then we have a paper record permanent.
Well, Walter would keep us all honest.
Exactly. He'd make sure we didn't talk over each other, right?
Did we have a motion? Do we have a motion?
I move that we keep the audio recordings for up to 2 years to allow motions to correct or amend the meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, but with the caveat that as long as it's technologically permissible.
Is there a second?
I will second it with that caveat, though.
That's acceptable.
Okay.
Joe, what was your caveat? I'm sorry.
That technology permits it to be available. If something happens,
there's no consequence.
Yeah.
Two simple questions for Robin. One, what sort of a burden does this place on the staff? And two, what sort of expense are we going to generate with this motion as made?
This is basically a procedure that we follow currently. We do have the minutes for at least years.
So there's no changes?
No changes. That's right. And that is the recording is what we use. If you, for instance, the mayor had mentioned for the minutes for the last council meeting that she doesn't recall stating what was a statement that was attributed to her in the minutes. We're going to go back and listen to the recording to see if we got something wrong or if we or if there was something that wasn't recollected. So that again is the procedure we follow.
So the motion is made, doesn't change anything.
Correct.
Are we ready to vote on this?
Sorry, say that again, Marcia?
We're ready to vote on this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Roll call, please, Robin.
Mr. DiPaolo.
Yes.
Mr. Curley.
Yes.
Mr. Dragg.
Abstain.
Mr. Ganawart.
Yeah, I'm going to abstain as well.
Mayor Asdale.
No.
Right.
What's the tally?
It is 2 yeses, 2 abstentions, and 1 no.
That's a no.
Pass?
No.
No.
Does that,
That's a no.
no? Okay. So let's go on with our once around.